Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 12, Say No to Fruit Loops. Science fiction, fantasy, time travel. This is the Stories Told podcast, talking about worlds of stories told, from movies to TV shows and, of course, books. I am E.W. Barnes, fiction author and avid fan of great stories. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds, thousands of stories told. Let's begin. Today we're talking about one of my favorite episodes from the 4th season of Stargate SG1. And as you know by now, beyond here there will be spoilers. So if you've not already seen the show and don't want to know what's going to happen, now's the time to tune in to one of my audiobook samples. I'll drop a link in the show notes below. My favorite episode in the 4th season of Stargate is Window of Opportunity, which probably comes as no surprise to fans of the show. This is an episode that makes it in the top 5 and frequently to the number 1 position in polls of favorite episodes from the series. And for good reason. It's a really great show. The story is about the team going to a planet where there are archaeological ruins left from the ancients, who are the gate builders themselves. So, of course, Daniel's really excited about that. And Sam is really excited about that because the ancients are the creators of great technology and she wants to learn more about the technology. Teal'c is there doing his Teal'c thing, and of course, O'Neill is kind of bored by it all because while he likes powerful weapons, archaeological ruins for the sake of history, and technology for the sake of coolness, it's not really his thing. Unfortunately for him and Teal'c, they are caught in a beam generated by a device on the planet which sends them back in time a few hours. And then, in Stargate's version of Groundhog Day, they repeat those few hours over and over and over again. What's great about this episode is that not only do you get to see the same thing over and over again and the slight differences that might happen as they become aware of their problem and try to fix it, but there's also a great deal of humor in this episode, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. Teal'c and O'Neill are the only ones who know what's happening, and they're going to have to be the ones that figure out a way out of this mess, because every time the loop resets, everybody else forgets what they've been told, and they have to start all over again explaining about the time loop that they're stuck in, which requires them to go way outside their comfort zones and learn how to translate ancient, which Daniel has to teach them how to do. They spend months in this loop learning how to read ancient before they're able to figure out how to stop the loop and save themselves. Now, what did I like about this episode? As I said before, the humor. The humor is outstanding in this episode because they take what could be, very serious. We have to learn ancient and we have to figure out, how to get out of this time loop thing, and really milk it for its humorous sides. For example, every time the loop resets, O'Neill finds himself in the commissary eating Fruit Loops. But what happens to Teal'c? Well, when the loop resets for him, he has just had a door opened in his face by a young airman, hitting him in the nose, and he has to put up with that every single time the loop resets. And in one of the times, he actually pushes the airman back into the door and says, "You always say you're sorry," because he's tired of being hit in the face with the door. Another thing that happens is Daniel points out to O'Neill, who is being the good soldier throughout, every time coming back, learning more ancient. He says to O'Neill, I'm not sure I wouldn't play around a bit knowing that everything was going to reset and there'd be no consequences. And then you get a wonderful series of scenes of O'Neill and Teal'c goofing off, learning how to juggle. Teal'c learns how to juggle from O'Neill riding a bicycle through the base, and then playing golf in the Stargate room where they're shooting balls through the open Stargate, leading to one of the best lines in the series when the general shouts at the colonel, "What are you doing?" And O'Neill responds, "In the middle of my backswing." And of course there is the famous scene where O'Neill resigns his commission and kisses Carter. And I know that's probably exciting for most people. I'm not a big fan of the romance, and there isn't really much romance in Stargate, but even sort of the chemistry piece that we kind of see between Sam and O'Neill, and it's not my favorite part of the show. So for that, yes, it's cute, it's fun, but I'm really glad at the end that that's not what actually happens, and then once the loop resets, we don't know about that, we don't see that again. And what do I wish is different in this episode? Very little. This episode is terrific in its writing and its pace and how it resolves itself. There's a very poignant scene at the end, which is part of the resolution that is just played beautifully. It's just truly a great episode. If you haven't seen it, go see it. There are a couple of runners-up for me in Season 4. One of them is called Watergate, and it's actually the episode that immediately follows Window of Opportunity. One of the reasons I love it is because it has a guest star role played by Marina Sirtis from Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I love seeing the actors from those series come into other shows. That particular episode is really fascinating because it not only introduces an interesting new concept related to the Stargate itself, opening up onto a world that's made of water and how you would deal with that, with what kinds of tools and technology to explore a water world. But it also starts tying up some other really interesting threads that had been laid out earlier in the series, such as Mayborn, who I have mentioned before. Harry Mayborn shows up in Russia, which is where this episode takes place. So that's a big surprise. You get to see him again. You also get to see some of the tension, the political tension between Russia and the United States over the Stargate. And so that thread is moved along in this episode as well. And I enjoy that very much. The other episode I love from this season, and is really a very close runner-up to Window of Opportunity, an episode called Exodus. And this episode too has a lot of threads that are being moved forward, threads that we learned earlier in the series that are now being moved forward or resolved or made into new threads, and that's really enjoyable. This story is about the Tok'ra wanting to move from the planet that they have been on in the new mothership that O'Neill has just stolen after killing the god Kronos. They're going to take this mothership, move the Stargate, move the entire population to a new planet so that the Goa'uld, the bad guys, can't find them anymore. And in order to do this, they actually have to get rid of one of the Tok'ra in their midst, who is actually not a Tok'ra, but a Goa'uld spy. But they've known that. His name is Tanith, and they've known Tanith is a Goa'uld spy, and they've been feeding him misinformation the entire time. But now they don't need him anymore, and they don't want him to know where they're moving to. So they out him as a spy, and they're going to get rid of him. Take him out of the host, free the host, and then move forward. But Tanith has an escape plan. Teal'c goes after Tanith because he's got a Jaffa revenge thing against him since Tanith killed his girlfriend. And in the meantime, the worst of the Goa'uld, Apophis, is on his way to destroy the Tok'ra because Tanith has told him what's happening. So Sam comes up with this great idea to blow up the sun. And it's an awesome episode. I really recommend it. So back to the Window of Opportunity episode. On a scale from 1 to 10, I give this episode a 10. And that brings us to the end of this podcast episode. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and join me next time when I talk about one of my favorite episodes from Season 5 of Stargate SG1. See you then.